I bid you welcome.
I welcome you to my house.
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my home.
Hello horror hounds, welcome to my horror house. I have just mere moments ago finished watching, for the first time ever, Lucio Fulci's Don't Torture a Duckling on the recommendation of one of you lovely people. I forget who, please forgive me. It's a film that I've owned but haven't watched for a long time, and I think I was quite wary because of the title and did wonder whether it might have some form of animal cruelty in it. As it happens, none whatsoever. The title just has duckling in it because lots of giallos after Argento's The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, and especially his first three movies of the Animal trilogy. It was de rigueur to have the name of an animal in the title. So no animal cruelty. What you do get is a film set in rural southern Italy where the young sort of 12, 13-year-old boys of a village are being murdered, strangled. And in true giallo fashion, we have an investigation, and there's a police investigation, and there's also some amateur sleuthing going on to try and find the identity of the killer. And I've got to say, it's really good. It's really strong. When Lucio Fulci really focuses and delivers a thoughtful sort of economical piece that has a thing to say or a job to do, he really is quite something. But the last Fulci movie that I talked about on this channel, so the last Fulci movie that I saw was The Psychic, which again absolutely blew me away with how, I don't want to say economical it was, but how stripped back. The Fulci I think of normally when Fulci comes to mind is the overblown Fulci of The Beyond, of Zombie Flesh Eaters, The House by the Cemetery, and I love that Fulci. I adore the gonzo nutso Fulci of The Beyond. I love the sort of quasi-hypnotic, mystic, strange dream logic bonkers of Manhattan Baby. What I'm less familiar with is this sort of really focused Fulci who delivers powerful, efficient thrillers, mysteries, giallo like The Psychic, and now like Don't Torture a Duckling, which I must admit I probably would have seen a lot sooner were it not for that really weird title. There's an awful lot to dig into in the film, and it's probably a film that I'm going to have to return to again, because this is literally just I've finished watching it. These are my initial impressions. I've watched a couple of the extras on the Arrow Blu-ray that I've got, which are really fascinating and really interesting. There's an awful lot of subtext going on in this movie. There's stuff that you could dig into for days. I think you could get right up to your elbows in this movie if you wanted to. The interesting thing that struck me straight away as a sort of amateur fan of giallo is the rural setting. Usually, most giallo tend to be urban affairs. They tend to be modern and jet-setty, with a foreigner coming to Italy, or our protagonist jet-setting off to the UK or all around the world. It's very rare to get something that's sort of set in a rural environment. The only one I can bring to mind is the equally excellent House with the Laughing Windows. Throughout the movie you have a tension between the rural and the urban, and to its credit the film is much more subtle than just saying one is good and the other one is bad. You have officers from the city come in to aid the investigation, and they see things one way and the investigation should pan out one way. The officers there from the area have a much more nuanced understanding of, well, they know the people involved, they know the superstitions and how they potentially intermingle with the religion and the faith of the villagers, whereas the people from the city just see it as absolute nonsense superstition. And there are pros and cons on both sides. Visually, we start off with a shot of this honking great highway which cuts through the countryside and brings to the village a couple of prostitutes from the city who are coming to earn some money, do their job, and we follow 3 young boys who are keeping an eye out for them, because when the prostitutes arrive at the village, they like to go and spy on them just to see some nudie women. And there's all the suspects are outsiders who have come into the village, people who the villagers with their community treat with suspicion. There's so much delicious subtext going on. I absolutely can't do it justice in this ramble. What I will say is, unfortunately, sadly for me, I knew the identity of the killer before I watched the film. It had been spoiled for me in a pretty good documentary called All the Colours of Giallo. I wish I hadn't spoiled it, but it still kept me interested. The investigation puts forward a goodly number of suspects, and it seems that they've got the person who did it, and then events unfold to disprove that. It's a nice knotty little giallo murder mystery that gets opened up and exposed as the film goes on. The revelation of the killer is deeply satisfying, adds lots of slathers of layers of subtext to what you've seen going on before. Very interesting female characters, which I say that with a little note of surprise in my voice, because that's not something that Fulci normally gets credited for. An awful lot of the suspects that are put before us are female characters, and whilst on the surface they seem to fit into some real sort of archetypes. There's the witch, there's the temptress, there's the mother figure. Again, you can dig down into those, and once you learn more about those characters, those archetypes get subverted. Considering it's a Lucio Fulci film and that the victims of the killer are young boys, there is an awful lot of restraint on display. He doesn't go gleefully gaga for the gore, although there is quite a gory set piece in the middle. It doesn't involve the murder of a child. It's actually probably the most affecting set piece section of the movie, I would argue. A sort of horrible example of rural justice, of the village taking their form of justice into their own hands. It reminded me a little bit of Sam Peckinpah, a little bit of Straw Dogs, but this section it's very uncomfortable to watch. It's very brutal. It's counterpointed. The visuals, what we're shown, are counterpointed really effectively with a pop song, a couple of pop songs that are playing on a car radio that's been turned up real loud to cover the noise of what these villagers are doing, and this really stark contrast of what we're hearing and what we're seeing, and a movie that has been quite restrained up until this point, getting very explicit. It's essentially an extremely powerful moment of cinema, and when Lucio Fulci pulls it out of the bag, I would say that he is batting with the greats, with Dario Argento, with Mario Bava. It's just that he makes so many movies and so many different kinds of movies that it's kind of hard to sometimes laud him here, because over here there's another weird and wacky and wonderful type of film that he's made, which is completely antithetical to this. But when he chooses to deliver the goods, I would say he's up there with the greats. He can do the really focused, intriguing, intricate thrillers and gialli. He can do the crazy, supernatural, sort of mind-bending the Beyond kind of stuff. To my mind, Zombie Flesh Eaters is my favourite zombie movie of all time. So he's made, to my taste, the greatest zombie movie of all time. So why is it that I still don't laud and hail Fulci as much as I do someone like Dario Argento? It's something I'm going to have to mull over, because once again I've watched a Lucio Fulci movie and I'm blown away by it.